Gojo is done holding back, and let's talk about it because in chapter 231 we got the countdown to the wheel's adaptation to infinity, with Gojo declaring he'll beat Sukuna dead before he's able to adapt. And I find this a little interesting because we have other characters commenting and wondering if Gojo is no longer trying to save Megumi. And in the back of Gojo's mind during this fight, he has to know that if he dies to Sukuna, Megumi will be double orphaned. A huge part of why Gojo defended Megumi in the first place is because he was trying to protect him from the Zenin family, but also because he feels terrible for taking this kid's father from him. And even though Gojo rarely lets people see how he actually feels internally, he is pissed at Sukuna. I see a lot of people complain about Gojo not being serious enough in this fight, but Gojo smiling, that's just kind of his personality in the first place. Even if Sukuna did get under Gojo's skin, Gojo would never say anything or show it in the fight because that's just not who he is. And last chapter, Gojo's method of stopping Sukuna was punching him in the face with amped fist and then saying something like,
"Stings, doesn't it?"
And I have always been on the ride or die Limitless Blue train, especially if you watch my channel for a while. I think the Limitless Blue Lapse is just the best thing it has to offer. It's so good that Gege doesn't even write him using it all the time. You want to hear about Gojo's teleport? It's not a Forklift Shinobi video, but don't talk about Gojo's teleport. Gojo's teleport, nowhere to be f***ing seen. I saw Toto's hands clapping a shorter period of time ago than I saw Gojo's. So I am desperately praying for the return of Gojo's teleport so I can see the floating teleport battle that he did against Miguel. Sukuna can use his little Mike Guy air pocket feet to try to run up against Gojo, and Mahoraga can jump off the nearest skyscraper. And the community has been talking about Gojo's maximum technique for a while now, since a maximum technique is the most powerful technique you can pull outside of a domain. So a lot of people think it's going to be something along the lines of like a maximum hollow purple or something like that, or a maximum lime green. And I'm not sure exactly what we're going to get because we did get the massive 200% purple at the very start of this fight. And we're probably going to see hollow purple again because I doubt it's just going to be this one-off 200% full incantation amped version. And I'm going to use a little bit of a narrative argument here in that power creep in a fight is usually how anime works, and that the most powerful abilities or the most flashy abilities are used last. And Unlimited Void is extremely powerful, but Hollow Purple undeniably hits harder than Unlimited Void does. I mean, this thing destroys a whole city if you wanted to. And Unlimited Void just kind of roasts your brain. There's nothing wrong with that. If you like Unlimited Void more than the idea of Hollow Purple, that's totally fine. But for me personally, I'm hoping once the wheel's adapted, because it will probably adapt to all 4 spins, I doubt Gojo is going to kill Sukuna before he even reveals his technique. I hope it doesn't become a one-side stomp in the other direction, because Gojo is just tossing Sukuna around right now. And there are some really cool panels in this, and some really cool applications of blue on Showcase for the first time. But battles in this series, the most interesting thing about them usually is how curse techniques interact with each other. And right now, Infinity is kind of the wall in Game of Thrones where it's keeping the White Walkers out. And whether or not Gojo knows about the full technique of Gojo with the 6 eyes, because it is a little inconsistent despite some author statements. The bigger thing here in this chapter is that Gojo knows this is his best chance to kill Sukuna. This is the easiest it is ever going to be. And Sukuna seems pretty confident that his technique is enough to bring down what Gojo has shown so far. So at least how I interpreted this is that Gojo is stuck between a rock and a hard place where he's like, okay, I can go all out, I can stop the half measures, and I can just try to kill Sukuna, or I can keep going and save Megumi. And that's got to be a tough decision to make because Gojo was really close to saving Megumi with the Unlimited Void, but he was also about 20 seconds from having his barrier collapsed and dying. And we won't really know how much either character was holding back their arsenal in the initial domain battle until the end of the fight. But given the current setup of the fight, Sukuna is going to inevitably get stronger as the fight goes on because of that adaptation wheel. And we don't know entirely yet because we don't know Sukuna's technique, but I'm pretty confident he doesn't have anything else for Infinity besides the wheel. The way he's talking about the wheel sounds like he can at least partially take its adaptation for himself, or he's going to give it to Mahoraga. And I will say, if he does just give it to Mahoraga and that's the only thing he's capable of doing, then I think he probably does have something else for Infinity. Because Gojo seems pretty confident in blowing away Mahoraga in one shot, and he's actively not using parts of his technique to avoid adaptation. And both Gojo and Sukuna are talking about primarily Infinity, not just the entire adaptation to Limitless. So it sounds like Sukuna is either able to use the adaptation for himself, or he has something else to fight alongside Mahoraga with. Either way, it's bad news, so we're probably going to see Gojo get pretty violent in the upcoming chapters. And speaking of violent, let's talk about Kashimo for a second, because Kashimo is just waiting to find out who's going to kill him in the story. I've seen people say that Kashimo is not going to do anything, and if Kashimo was worthwhile, he would have just gone first. Kashimo's whole character is that he wants to fight the strongest, and he has a one-use technique, so he's kind of just waiting to find out which one of these guys is actually the strongest. Because I imagine it would be pretty disappointing for Kashimo to go out with his one-time use technique and fight the second best. That's why we see in both cases he does not care for the lives of Megumi, Sukuna, or Gojo. He only cares to find out who is actually the strongest. I see an awful lot of assumptions that hidden techniques are going to do nothing in this series for some reason. These things are not hidden for kicks. It's not necessarily they're going to be the strongest in the entire series, but they're going to do something. That's kind of the whole point of them, and with characters like Kashimo, he's pretty much a walking technique. People treat Sukuna like his only character trait is loving to fight, and don't get me wrong, he does love to fight, but Kashimo's whole character is, I turn myself into a cursed object so I can go sit around for 400 years and fight the guy who is probably the strongest. But then he gets there, violates a bunch of Culling Games players, and then turns Panda into stuffing, fights Hikari, joins up, finds out that, oh shit, there are 2 super powerful guys in this era. And they are also about to have a death battle, so I guess I'll wait to find out which one is the strongest for my single-use technique. So the reason people keep bringing up Kashimo is that he is the wild card. We don't know what his technique is, so it could put him as number 3 in the entire series for all we know. And that's on top of the fact that Kashimo is heavily implied to be the strongest of the reincarnated sorcerers besides Sukuna himself. Let's just put it like this, Ryu gets a cameo in Kashimo's backstory. So, I mean, that kind of shows you where he's at, and this also shows you where he's at, which is the fucking morgue. And a lot of people say that Kashimo is only at Yuta and Hikari level as a downplay. Well, so is Yuki, and she could create a black hole that would suck the whole planet in. And coincidentally, her technique was also hidden until the fight that she died in. And she had the strongest attack we have seen in the series that was only survived by Kenjaku because he had the perfect counter on top of her nerfing it, on top of Tengen stopping it. So all I'm saying is hold your judgment on characters until you see their full kit. And that goes for Gojo, that goes for Sukuna, that goes for everybody. Because we have entered round 2 of Gojo versus Sukuna, and these two are starting to get serious, and Gojo is starting to forget about Megumi a little bit, and people are taking note of this. And this is an anime channel, so I'm almost 100% positive that 99% of my viewers have watched other anime, especially shonen, besides Jujutsu Kaisen. And if you've seen nothing but Jujutsu Kaisen, well, you picked a pretty good one. But if you read comics or manga, characters almost always save their super cool trump cards for the very end. Because really, that's where a lot of people find the fun. The payoff in a fight is all the build up to the final attacks and the final abilities and the final forms they take. But that's just my opinion, and I want to hear yours. What do you think of Gojo versus Sukuna, and how do you think this fight is going to end? I know I wasn't able to upload that much in the past 2 weeks, and now we're in another break week, which kind of sucks, but I'll try to get some more content out, especially on the anime, because we're starting to move into Shibuya, which is the part a lot of people are looking forward to. But if you like content like this, subscribe for more, and as always, thanks for watching.